The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
It may not feel like it, but your Chiefs have won 9 straight AFC West championships.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
We need to celebrate what is a very unique way, Matt, to win the AFC West, one that I don't think this team has done before. A doink kick that goes in is not something I had on my bingo card for tonight. Chiefs played, I thought, in some ways a little bit more gritty tonight, and in some ways, tied their feet together on purpose. And it just comes down to another 2-point win that I wasn't sure was going to happen. How confident were you going in, and what did you think when that kick went up?
I mean, how can you not laugh after this game watching that kick? I mean, I'm all out. I mean, no, I did not have this on my bingo card either. I made it pretty clear that the two things I had on my bingo card for tonight was the Chiefs either winning with a pick 2, or that the Chiefs had enough injuries at corner that they were going to sign a golden retriever to play at corner, and Dave Merritt was going to get this guy to get 6 goal. Gus, the golden retriever, was going to get 6 pass breakups tonight. That's what's going to happen the next couple of weeks. So we know that because this team is going to continue to win games like this. It is absolutely insane, and I can't explain it, but I can tell you just walking around, the concourse downstairs and outside the locker room, I mean, you couldn't just walk around, just run into somebody and just start laughing, because how can this team continue to win games like this?
I don't know how they can keep doing it, but doink is all I can really think about watching this game. Matt Wright just comes back in, and I'll be honest, I mean, you go back to the first kick of the game, it didn't look like he was going to make it then. Like the first kick, I thought he was going to hook. And then, come back and doink it off the upright to win the game from, what should just be a gimme kick. Kansas City's playing on the right side in some of these games, and it's very big that they continue to win. There's going to be a lot of questions as to how they can continue going down this path. But the big thing that, you look forward right now, they win their 9th straight division. They're in a position where they're now a game and a half up on Buffalo. And if they win 3 out of the next 4 games, they are the number 1 seed and will be playing at home with the first round bye, which is a huge thing for this team. They absolutely need that first round bye. And let's not forget, they may end up getting a 2-game lead on Buffalo, because Buffalo will be playing against the Detroit Lions this next week. So this is a big win. I mean, everything that happened to Kansas City this weekend really plays to their favor.
Yeah, I mean, their magic number right now is essentially 3. I mean, they need some combination of 3 wins, losses. I mean, as far as, eliminating Buffalo, 3 Buffalo losses, 3 Kansas City wins, some combination thereof. Same with the Steelers. So, I mean, hey, they could absolutely clinch the number 1 seed in the next 3 games by just winning out. So they've got that going for them. But they could even clinch even earlier if they get some help. That's the crazy thing about this. So, I mean, the options there. I mean, and they've left it on the table. I mean, that Buffalo loss today was huge, and now the Buffalo schedule doesn't look as favorable as it did, because even though they got some considerably games down the road, that Lions game is not going to be one of them. But at the same time, you look at this Chiefs game, and was anything really resolved or solved tonight? I mean, this team still had many of the same problems that have been afflicting it the last few weeks. And, we're fortunate that the Chargers were not full strength. I mean, if the Chargers had led McConkey, Chargers may very well win this game tonight. I mean, that was close enough that McConkey would have been a difference maker, I think, as well as I don't know if Justin Herbert can play any better than he did tonight. He made some absolutely insane, incredible throws to keep this team in this game. So I give a lot of credit to him, but I mean, the Chiefs, this was not their best effort. I mean, the offensive line, this was not just a DJ Humphries problem tonight. this was a problem across the entire line. I mean, they're run the ball much. They did well, I thought, in run blocking, but pass protection was abysmal. I think, was it 14 hits that Mahomes took tonight?
Yeah.
You just can't survive that.
Yeah, and
get him hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we don't know, and Matt, it looks like Andy Reid didn't talk about injuries, so we have no idea about DJ Humphries right now. We have no idea if he'll be available next week. And the bigger problem that Kansas City is going to be facing is they're going to have 3 games in 10 days starting this next Sunday. They play the Browns this Sunday, then they play the Texans after that on Saturday, and then they turn around and they play on Christmas. So that's a brutal schedule. 3 games in 10 days when you haven't had a bye since week 6 is horrible. Now, the nice thing is they will get a little bit of a mini bye, and that's going to be helpful, but it's still a brutal schedule at this point.
And at least the one thing they have going for them in that 3-game sequence is that everybody's going to be on the same schedule. So they're not going to be at a rest disadvantage at any sort in that stretch. So that's at least one thing that they have going for them. Everybody's going to be kind of in the same disadvantage, but you still have to think that despite what the Raiders did on Christmas Day at Arrowhead last year, playing on the road on Christmas Day against a good team like the Steelers is still a disadvantage.
There's a lot to take away. And obviously, without injury status, there's pressures, evidently, according to NGS, Matt. DJ Humphries gave us some pressure. That shouldn't be a headline, not in my book anyway. I will say it did look a little bit rough. There was communication issues on the offensive line, particularly with him and Joe Thuney early. But I did feel, much as Andy Reid kind of said in his presser, that it did smooth out late there. In the middle 2 quarters, I thought were going pretty well. Then he comes up with what looks like a hamstring. We don't even know that for certain at this point. But that goes back to a bigger question for me. He had to make the adjustment. Obviously, he was rusty, but he looked markedly better than what we've seen from the tackle position so far this season. And now another soft tissue injury makes me think that he was rushed back a little bit too quickly. What do they do from here for you to make the best step forward against what is an elite pass rusher next week in Myles Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, for sure. And the offensive line struggled across the board. I mean, hey, DJ Humphries was not the only person giving up some pressures tonight. I mean, everybody did. If you want to look at the glass half full, I mean, at least DJ Humphries wasn't giving up some of the fast pressures and the fast hits, the fast backs that left tackle position has been yielding. At the same time, I mean, like you mentioned, Ryan, and then the next gen stats, he gave up 8 pressures and 40 protection snaps. 20% pressure rate, not good. So that's bad. But to your point, she stretched him in there. I mean, that was because they wanted to win this game. Felt like he gave them the best chance, even though I don't think that either the Chiefs or Jerry Humphries will admit this. He wasn't ready, and that's perfectly understandable. This guy has had 1 padded practice since having an ACL injury and since arriving in town 2 weeks ago. I think it was an absolutely yeoman's job to just even play on behalf of DJ Humphries and be willing to go out there and do this. Probably a lot of guys who might have even just said, wait a minute, I'm not ready yet. I need more time. I think that would have been reasonable. And you certainly hope that, he wasn't rushed out there too quickly, didn't get a chance to get settled in, and now has a hamstring injury that's going to be significant. I mean, once again, if you want to look at glass half full, he did not go back to the locker room. He went over to the medical exam table, had a quick look-see, and then remained on the sideline. So he didn't go back to the locker room or anything of that nature. Didn't get to talk to him afterwards, but maybe it's going to be better than we think, and he's going to be able to stay out there. Hey, in the few snaps that Wanya Morris had, looked good. I mean, there's probably the advantage of being able to come in even if you're cold, that at least you got that adrenaline and you don't have 50 or 60 snaps under your belt going in there. So that helped out Wanya at the end of the game. Question is, where do you go next week if you don't have DJ Humphries? Do you go back to Wanya Morris? I mean, that would probably be the guy that's at the top of the list. Is that your option? Is it Tooney? Is it Ethan Driscoll? Is it True Godric? I don't know. I mean, if DJ Humphries can't go next week, I really don't know where the Chiefs go with this. Wanya Morris, I think, would be the safe bet, but I don't know that he's necessarily the guy.
Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
The Buffalo Bills experienced a rare December loss following.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
The Buffalo Bills fell to the Los Angeles Rams 44-42, dropped to 10-3 on the season. They do remain the number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. It's been a while, but not a victory Monday here on Locked On Bills. A very disappointing loss for Buffalo. An unserious effort by the defense, special teams blunders, coaching blunders, and we should be talking about and celebrating a heroic and all-time and elite and exceptional performance by Josh Allen, but we're not. We're talking about how that was spoiled here in this post-game reaction. Want to get into this conversation in a more traditional sense. I want to talk about things I didn't like, which is quite a bit. Want to talk about some blunders, which I guess fall under things I didn't like. And then I do want to get into things I liked. Maybe give you a silver lining and talk about what's next. So let's get into this. Things I didn't like, and we're just going to start with the defense. That was an unserious defensive effort by the Buffalo Bills. The Rams got whatever they wanted. And it started with them winning up front. They controlled the action with their offensive line. Bills' defensive line was, oh boy, what a horrible performance. The drive charts for the Rams, absolutely insane. This is in order. 12 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 65 yards, field goal. 12 plays, 76 yards, touchdown. End of half. 11 plays, 76 yards, touchdown. 7 plays, 70-yard touchdown. 3 and out. They punted. Wow. 11 plays, 71 yards, touchdown. Are you kidding? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scoring drives of more than 65 yards. You ain't going to beat anybody like that. Not even if your quarterback goes out and has 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. Just an absolutely unserious defensive effort. Giving up 44 points. Giving up 28 first downs. They converted 12 possession downs. They're 12 of 16 on 3rd and 4th downs. You couldn't get a stop. You could not come close to getting a stop. Conceding 457 yards of offense. The Rams possessed the ball for 38 and a half minutes. It's one of the worst defensive performances I've seen from the Buffalo Bills. Not necessarily in a long time, but in my lifetime. An unserious defensive effort. Pass rush, complete no-show. Didn't sniff Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford just dicing up the Bills left and right. Dot after dot after dot after dot. The Bills say, we're going to play zone coverage and we're going to dare you to make high level of difficulty throws. And Matthew Stafford said, okay, no problem. I'll do that. I'm one of the most talented quarterbacks in terms of arm talent in the league over the last 20 years. Sure, yeah, I'll make all those throws. No problem. 23 of 30, 320 yards. Dime after dime after dime after dime. And I think the Bills needed to play more man defense early in the game. I think they needed less delayed blitzes. I mean, I'm watching second-level defenders on a delayed release, and all you're doing is just vacating space and making it easy for Matthew Stafford. You needed your defensive lineman to win a one-on-one battle and get off a block and get quick pressure and make a play behind the line of scrimmage. Taron Johnson's getting cooked left and right from the slot. I talked about in the build-up to this game that this is a matchup of good on good with their receivers against the Bills' corners. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua against Taron Johnson, Rasul Douglas, and Christian Benford. Their good beat our good. I mean, literally not a single clutch play made on defense. And that's been your formula all year. You get a little bit leaky, you give up some yards, but at some point you'd get a play. Not tonight. Not in this one. Stafford had whatever he wanted. And hat tip to him, man. He went out there and executed, played one heck of a game. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua made plays left and right. They had timely play calls from Sean McVay that kind of knew where the Bills were going to be trying to pressure or where they were going to play coverage, and just had the right answers over and over and over and over and over again. Got outplayed, got outcoached. And the run defense, I think if you look at it in totality, you're not going to look at 42 rushes, 137 yards as a terrible game, right? Only 3.3 yards per carry. But it started hot, and I thought it opened up everything for their team. They start to control the line of scrimmage. They're running the football well. The Bills have to start rolling safeties down into the run fit. They have to start run blitzing to get stops against the run. And that, I thought, opened up a lot for their passing game. But the bottom line is your defense you didn't have any answers. Ever in the game. Just unbelievable in terms of the Rams meeting the moment, in terms of exactly the type of style of defense the Bills are going to give you, and them having every right idea, execution, pulled every correct lever, and the Bills had no answers. And I'm sure that's going to bring up a lot of questions about, well, Matt Milano, is he helping? Dorian Williams was on an ascending path. It's going to bring up questions. Well, Rasul Douglas gets hurt and Kyer Elam's inactive, and is that the right move? It's going to bring up questions about a defensive line rotation and if it's good enough. I get it. I understand all the possibilities that people are thinking about. And maybe it was just an uncharacteristic game and it's not replicatable, and Stafford, Nacua, and Kupp played out of their minds, and that's probably not going to happen again. But boy, oh boy, was that an unserious effort from Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbich's defense. Got roasted for 60 minutes. You thought maybe coming out of halftime there'd be some ideas. No. Coming out of halftime when you're down all those points at halftime, they come out and score 2 consecutive touchdown drives of more than 70 yards. 3 touchdown drives of more than 70 yards on their first 4 possessions of the second half. You didn't have any answers whatsoever.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You're going to want to check out some lines from Monday Night Football. The Bengals favored by 5.5 at Jerry World over the Cowboys. I had to start Cooper Rush in fantasy. The Simpsons broadcast is looking at some high-scoring football and has the total 49.5. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. You make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
For 3 minutes, things looked like they were going to be much different in this rematch between the Seahawks and the Cardinals.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast.
We get to dive into a second victory over the Arizona Cardinals in a 3-week span. But at least for a couple minutes, it looked like this was going to be a much different game than the one that we saw at Lumen Field. There were more points in this game than what we saw a few weeks ago. But fortunately for the 12s, the Seahawks rebounded from that rough start, giving up a quick touchdown drive. They were down 7-0. After that point, the defense got back to creating turnovers. The offense, believe it or not, led by the offensive line, had a balanced approach, over 170 rushing yards in this game. It felt like, to an extent, that this is kind of one of those games where a lot of the things that were really still hurting this team We started to see them really put together things on offense. The special teams was good. It was just a really strong all-around football game by Mike McDonald's squad.
It was, and we saw the biggest improvements, Corbin, obviously in the offensive line, which we're going to get to, but just a huge performance. It's the most rushing yards this team has had since week 1 of this season. I mean, are you kidding me? Like that, it sounds crazy to say, but it was like back in those days, it sounds like almost, Corbin. We weren't worried so much about the run game, and then obviously things settled in, and it's been one of the biggest concerns about this Seahawks team as the season has gone on. Zach Charbonnet, just incredible today. You see the team numbers there on the screen, 259 passing yards for Arizona, 233 for Seattle, but obviously the rushing yards were the biggest difference for the Seahawks in this game. And Zach Charbonnet, we've talked about it in recent weeks on this podcast, Corbin, that Zach Charbonnet might be, or at least this is my opinion, is that Zach Charbonnet might be the better fit for this offense, and he showed it today, and that was partially because of the offensive line, of course, but Zach Charbonnet, just his downhill running style, the way that he's able to punish defenders, the way that he's able to just continue to combine that speed and in addition to the punishing running style is what makes him so dangerous. And that 51-yard rushing score, Corbin, was the longest run of the season by quite a big margin. The longest run of the season so far for the Seahawks prior to that run was just 28 yards by Kenneth Walker, and that was all the way back in week 3. It's incredible the turnaround that we saw today, and that was it was a team effort truly between the offensive line and Zach Charbonnet as a whole, and so it was great to see. It really was, and I think you saw the defense also step up. Obviously, they snapped their streak of 2 straight pick sixes, but you had also the 2 interceptions. So it was great to see the team effort today, and I think we're starting to see what this Seahawks team is capable of doing, especially if they're able to play into mid-January.
Yeah, and I think that we can safely say there's still a lot of room for improvement. The second half, the offense was not able to get a lot going after racing out to a big lead in the first half. But I want to talk about that flurry at the end of the first quarter, because that's really what won this game. The Cardinals come out and they get a 41-yard touchdown from Kyler Murray to Michael Wilson, who beat Kobe Bryant on a corner route. And he comes wide open. Murray, that might have been the best throw I've seen him make in a game against the Seahawks. It was beautifully dropped in there. And like I said, it felt like at that point, oh, this has a chance that could be a lot different if the Cardinals are going to be making plays like that. But really, after that point, aside from some garbage yardage in the second half, the Cardinals were not able to get anything going once again on offense. The run game, the statistics at the end are going to show they had a good game running the ball. But again, a lot of that was garbage statistics late in the game when Seattle was playing for the pass. This team still was well under 100 yards for most of the game that Arizona Cardinals were on the ground. So it was still another really good performance from the run defense. But those interceptions is really what got the avalanche rolling, so to speak. Weird to say that in Arizona, but got this game going in Seattle's favor and all the momentum going to the other sideline. Ernest Jones, he was talking about it after the game. It was one of those situations where second drive for the Cardinals, Seahawks had just kicked a field goal to make it 7-3. He turns and suddenly, the ball's gift wrapped right there to him. He was shocked. He couldn't believe that Kyler Murray threw that football because he threw it right at him. Clearly, Murray did not see him. That ball gets returned inside the 20-yard line. Very next play, Jack Smith-Njigba gets a dime dropped from Geno Smith, 19-yard touchdown. Now it's 10-7 Seahawks. A couple plays later, Kobe Bryant redeems himself for that earlier touchdown, undercuts and out routes as Zay Jones picks it off. A few plays later, Zach Charbonnet is going into the end zone on a fly sweep, and suddenly it's a 10-point game. That was really what changed the tide in this football game. And Seattle obviously added that 51-yard touchdown run from Zach Charbonnet towards the end of the first half as well to give themselves a 14-point advantage going into the second half. Really, it's weird because we remember all those years where Pete Carroll had the, can you win in the first quarter? Can you win in the second quarter? Can you win in the third quarter? Seattle won this game in the first quarter. There's no question about it with what they did on defense and the way that the offense played. And look, we can talk Zach Charbonnet. We can talk Geno Smith. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about the skill guys. To me, this game was about the offensive line. They deserved all the roses they got at the end of the game. Geno Smith got hit twice this entire game. It was the first time all year that he wasn't sacked a single time. Some of that was his ability to get the ball out quickly, but the offensive line was playing fantastic football. The touchdown to Jack Smith-Njigba, he was on his second progression there. And how many times this year has he not even been able to get to his second progression because of the pressure that he has been under? Zach Charbonnet, all those huge holes, that 51-yard touchdown that he had on that counter tray, you got to see Satoa Lamea get out there in space and how athletic this guy really is. Abe Lucas as well with that kick-out block. The offensive line as a whole, it was easily the best that this group has played, and you're starting to see some continuity with this current group, and that's what's exciting with 5 games left to play.
Yeah, I agree. And it's another thing that Mike McDonald talked about after the game as well, Corbin, just saying that, it's nice to have this same group of guys for 2 weeks in a row. And it's like, how often has Seattle had that? I know that they've obviously, had a couple games with the same group of guys, but it has come down to the fact that you went down to at right tackle, right? Like you started with George Fant, you went to Stone Forsythe, and then you went to
Mike
Jarrell, thank you. Exactly. I mean, we've had so many at this point, I'm almost starting to forget. It's incredible the evolution that this offensive line has been through. And then all of a sudden you plug in Abraham Lucas again. You've had some continuity with him there. Christian Haynes has obviously had his opportunities, but it just didn't work out in terms of the starting lineup. And now you plug Satoa Lamea in there, and he's had those reps a couple weeks in a row here. And you're starting to see Satoa Lamea is looking confident, Corbin. And that's, I think, one of the best things about what this group is doing at this point. You can see that when he gets open in space with Abraham Lucas, again, on that counter that you're talking about on the 51-yard touchdown run, you see Lamea, he just gets in there, he lays the pancake, he lays on top of him, he eliminates a defensive player. Boom. That's exactly what you want him to do. You have Charles Cross and you have Olu Oluwatimi sealing off the right side of the defensive line. You have Charles Cross getting to the second and even the third level on that play to continue to open up holes for Zach Charbonnet. And Charbonnet just has to do the rest. He breaks 2 tackles and he's gone. It was beautiful to see, because this is what we saw so many times during Pete Carroll's tenure, very, very long 14-year tenure with the Seahawks, where the run game was so dominant, and it was difficult through the early part of this season to just continue to watch it fail time and time again, because it really, really came down to the fact that this offensive line did not look like it was gelling. And I don't think that was anybody's fault in particular, but now we're starting to see them kind of catch a stride. And it's curious, because when you come back to the running back side of things, Corbin, what has kind of struck me throughout this season is that you look at Ken Walker, and I obviously think the world of Ken Walker and the talent that he has and everything that he has in terms of an athletic ability. But Ken Walker is one of those running backs that is somewhat indecisive, right? Like he's always looking for the big play. And I don't think that that's necessarily a result of the offensive line, but Zach Charbonnet seems like he just hits that one hole and he goes. And I think that's something we haven't seen from Ken Walker this year. And I'm interested to see how it works out whenever Ken can get back, and if the offensive line continues to get this much push, because if they continue to play the way that they are and Ken Walker is still not churning out yards the way that Zach was today, you have to have a serious look at the running back position and try to decide who's better for this offense when you have Charbonnet playing the way he did today. But that's just my opinion.
We're now looking at his last 2 starts, Connor. He had 91 rushing yards against the Miami Dolphins back in week 3, 130-plus yards on the ground. And, oh, by the way, he had 7 catches for 59 yards today out of the backfield, too. So I do wonder if you start to have some discussions internally about what you're going to do at that backfield position, because he does have that more downhill, decisive. He's patient. There were a couple of times we saw that today with him letting his blocks get set up. So it's interesting, because I asked Geno Smith about this. Do you feel like this team is now finding their identity? He was saying it's more about, hey, today this team, the opponent we were playing, the gap scheme worked against it, but it feels like that is what this football team is. They are better at running the football with those gap schemes where they can get downhill. You can get guys out in space pulling. It doesn't seem like this is a zone-centric team, and they are having most of their success these last couple of weeks with duos, with counters, with power. That seems to be the bread and butter for this team, and that identity is starting to develop. And